Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 14 of the Essential Zodiac Podcast. I'm your host, Cynthia McNulty.
And I'm Audrey Fannin, producer.
Today, we are going to be talking about two topics in this episode. The upcoming Mercury Retrograde, and I can hear you all groaning out there, but it's going to be okay. We're gonna work it out. And the Pisces Full Moon. But before that, I just wanted to say for all you September babies out there, now is the time to order your solar return, which is your personal new year. It runs from birthday to birthday. You can find all the information about it on my website. Click on current promotions, and you will see the happy birthday offer. So check it out, or maybe not for yourself, but if you have friends or loved ones with September birthdays, it makes a nice gift. So now on to Mercury Retrograde. This retrograde is going to pass through the signs of Libra to Virgo. So it's going to be in Libra for a few weeks, and then it's going to end in Virgo. So we're going to talk about all of that. But this retrograde will excavate the underbelly of idealistic dreams and helping us to build a deeper foundation. You know, dreams are certainly important. We all need dreams. We all need things that we want to work for, goals. But we have to give them structure, or that's all they'll ever be, is dreams. So believe it or not, you can use Mercury retrograde energy to your advantage. So you don't have to be victimized by the backward energy that is coming your way. You can actually use that. One of the things I always tell my friends and clients is look for projects that you have put aside for whatever reason. Look at them again with new eyes, and you might find that they're doable after all. Or you might finally realize that they're never going to happen, and you can, release them from your life and work on something that is going to be beneficial to you. So use the retrograde to revise and rework, if you would. Now, while Mercury is retrograde in Libra, it will form an opposition with Jupiter in Aries mid-September, September 18th. And that can lead to you questioning where you've had inflated beliefs and you need to reconsider your perspective. See, that's another reconsider your perspective. When Mercury enters Virgo on the 23rd of September, it will form a flowing trine with Pluto.
So what does a trine mean?
Oh, sure. Mathematically, it's a distance between one planet to another. It forms a triangle, actually. And in astrology, those are called conjunctions, aspects, and it's how the planets talk to each other. Sometimes those aspects are beneficial. Like trine, like I said here, and sextiles are enhancements. Oppositions and squares are conflict. It makes this work harder. The energy is incompatible, so we have to work harder to put the energy to use. So,
well, let me ask.
Sure.
So when you say it's a triangle and we're talking about two planets, or sextile, because at that point you don't have 6 planets, you're talking about, you're still just talking about 2.
Right.
So these are all mathematical angles we're talking about?
Right, it's a mathematical angle, so it's really like only part of a triangle, but it's really based on the degrees apart that the planets are. So, for example, with the opposition, the planets are completely opposite each other on the wheel. So they're like butting heads. That's how I look at it when you have an opposition. And sextile is not 6, but 60 degrees of separation between the planets. So the main thing to remember when you see aspects is, just to read what the energy is. Now, sometimes too, an aspect for me would be a challenge and an aspect for you may not be with the same energy. It just depends what's in your chart, what's, going on around for the rest of the energy. So does that help?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you for that question. It's a good one.
So sorry to interrupt, though. You were talking about Mercury in Virgo forming a trine aspect with Pluto.
Right. So now we have Mercury traveling backwards with Pluto, right? Who's very stern. Not quite like Saturn, but very immovable. So what's going to happen when Mercury in Virgo forms this trine with Pluto, it's going to be very stimulating, though. Pluto is going to give it some backbone, if you will. Even though it's a easygoing aspect, trine is an easygoing aspect, it will still give us some backbone to work with the energy and get out of the retrograde period what we need to get out of it. So those planets will help give form to what we're trying to accomplish. One of the things is Virgo and Libra are the signs that bring us from summer to fall. So Virgo is the end of summer sign. And then, of course, you have Libra, which is, the beginning of fall. And we'll be talking about that in a minute. So there's also a symbolic meaning in Mercury not only being retrograde, but forming a regenerative connection with the sun on the exact day of the autumn equinox, when the sun moves into Libra. So, that is the first day of fall. This is a time of harvest. And similarly, Mercury will help us separating the wheat from the chaff. This is a good time to shed unwanted behaviors, unwanted thoughts even. Now's the time to get rid of them. We're harvesting. As any good gardener knows, now's the harvest time. We pull up all the dead plants. We get things ready to rest during the winter season so that when spring comes around, our garden is ready. So you have that too. So Mercury functions well in Libra. Its greatest strength is in Virgo, of course, because Mercury rules Virgo. But it works very well in Libra as well. Mercury likes the airy intellectual environment of Libra, and Mercury does excel in reflecting upon relational dynamics. Mercury in Virgo has an immense facility in discerning choices and distinguishing points of focus. So this is how we can definitely use this energy coming at us during the Mercury retrograde is, giving thoughtful contemplation to places in our life that we could improve upon. And maybe that means, separating what no longer serves us, and that is basically the energy until the end of the year. Harvesting the benefits and preparing our land, our mind, if you would, to take it up again in the spring.
What I'm getting in order to really kind of be in the flow of retrograde is to figure things out during the retrograde, but not to take action or make decisions until it goes direct.
Yes. Retrograde periods are the period for research, for uncovering what you want to do, making an outline, a checklist, thinking about, okay, how can I make my goal for the year or goals, come true. We're running, if you would, out of time. Or maybe setting up a plan of what you'll do with these goals come springtime. Maybe it's like, okay, this isn't the year to open my business, for example, but let me see what's going on, and I'll put a better focus on it next year. I'll do more research. I'll look at, small business loans, whatever. And so when spring comes along, you could start then implementing everything that you have researched. Now, sometimes, life is life, and it's still going to go on whether we're in Mercury retrograde or not. So sometimes we have to act. We have to do something. If you get offered a new job, you're not going to have it if you say, oh, yeah, I'll see you in March. And, this is October, September. So, that's not going to work. But be prepared sometimes for when you do act, out of necessity, that when Mercury does go direct, there may be some fine-tuning or tweaking that you might need to put into action. So, go ahead and accept the job, knowing that you might have to, renegotiate some aspect of it.
Another re.
Yes, very good. Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to be listening for re's now.
Yes, definitely. So before we get into the Pisces full moon, we're going to take a little break. Be right back.
Visit EssentialZodiac.com to learn more about the solar return special Cindy mentioned earlier, and be sure to sign up for the monthly Skywatch Journal. While you're there, take a look at the Patreon member levels perks to help support production of this podcast. And if you have a question about astrology that you'd like Cindy to discuss on an upcoming episode, send an email to ezpodcast@yahoo.com. Back to you, Cindy.
Thank you, Audrey. Now, on to the Pisces full moon. And the very next day, after Mercury turns retrograde, we will have the full moon in Pisces. The full moon occurs when the sun in Virgo forms an opposition to the moon, which is now in Pisces. And like I said before, an opposition is they're totally opposite each other on the wheel. So that is how you know it's going to be a full moon, when it's opposite the sun. The full moon, as I've mentioned before, is a time of culmination and the promise of fulfillment that we started at the new moon. And it could be as far back as the new moon in Pisces, or it could be just our most recent new moon. This is an emotional time, a time of romance, fertilization, and relationships. Pisces is a water sign, and water signs are usually, they wear their hearts on their sleeves. Every water sign I've known has been they have tender hearts, very tender hearts. This lunation occurs along the Virgo-Pisces polarity, which is the service axis. The service axis is Virgo and Pisces are opposite each other on the wheel. They work as a team. Usually the pairs of signs that are opposite do work as a team. Virgo is very service-oriented, for the greater good. They're very loyal employees. They're very loyal partners. I'm married to a Virgo. I know from what I speak. Very loyal, very loving, too. And Pisces is very romantic and loving in its own right, in a different way. Like I said, it's a water sign. But Pisces have great empathy, and sometimes too much, where they put others before themselves, or they take on the pain and suffering of others, and then you're fine, but they're an emotional wreck. So we always have to be very gentle with our Piscean friends, because you can break their heart very easily. So this axis deals also with the balance between, our day-to-day functions and routine, and the need for order, which is very Virgo. They like things orderly. And our vision, spiritual health, and the infinite, which is Piscean. So Virgo rules our personal set of tools and techniques that we use to deal with everyday life, while Pisces guides our spirituality. Pisces is ruled by Neptune, so that is the planet of illusion as well. The key to balance lies in identifying and expressing our spiritual needs while maintaining order in our daily life. So we have these two halves of ourselves that have to work together. So you have to go to work every day, right, to keep the roof over your head. And then you need to nurture, the spiritual side of you in any way that is comfortable for you. It doesn't even have to be an organized religion, but, honor the divine within yourself. It really comes down to a balanced life. To use Libra, you want to keep the scales in balance, right? It's not always easy because life gets in the way, or there's some crisis that has led you more towards your spiritual side. But eventually you have to bring that all back. So when we have this full moon highlighting our spirituality, it's also a good time to take advantage of that. Maybe add a meditation routine, take some yoga classes if that is something you enjoy. But I think also it's important to step outside ourselves and, look around, and you'll be like, oh, I've got it pretty good. If you ever get the chance, serve hot meals in a soup kitchen or a homeless shelter or anything like that. You'll come back with a completely different perspective on your life. So this full moon here also harmonizes with Uranus. And right now Uranus is in Taurus, so it's an earth sign. It's stable. So this suggests an easier, more natural acceptance of change and progress now. Change is scary. I am not immune to it either. No one is. But sometimes it's very, very necessary. And you never know what that change will hold for you and what the domino effect will be. Years ago, my daughter and her husband were contemplating a move to Maryland. It would be only them there. They had no family. We were all in North Carolina. And so, she was asking advice and talking to me, and I'm like, well, if you're unhappy in Maryland and it doesn't work out, you can always come back home. North Carolina is not going to lock you out because, you moved to Maryland for a couple of months. And, of course, she started laughing, and that was good. It lightened the mood. But she said, she went home and told that to her husband, and he was like, well, yeah, so they did move to Maryland. It was a good experience for them. They did end up coming back to North Carolina, but the experience on the whole was positive. So go with that. Always go on a new adventure with an open mind, because you don't want to miss any of the benefits along the way. Now, the full moon often has names, and you can find them in the Old Farmer's Almanac. They're drawn from Native Americans, colonial America, European sources. Traditionally, the full moon name was applied to the entire lunar month. So not only just the full moon, but all the subsequent moons after that. The full moon now happens to be nearest to the fall equinox, or Mabon, for my fellow pagans out there, and it takes on the name harvest moon. The full moon would give the farmers extra light to harvest their crops for the coming winter. I mean, you have to, think back to the day. There wasn't any lights except, possibly candles and
That's not going to light your field.
No, you don't want too much candles near, your field. So, the harvest moon, of course, burns brighter. And, of course, with no ambient lighting around other lights, it probably was very, very bright, just the moon and the stars. And that was their harvest moon. So also, too, unlike other moons, it rised at nearly the same time every night. So they also had that going for them, too, that they knew when the moon was about to rise and they could go and do their chores. So we're going to pull another tarot card. The one I'm using is the moon from the Rider-Waite deck. You can certainly use your own deck if you have one. You just want to pull out the moon card. You can Google the moon tarot. You'll get thousands of images that you can, print one off, whatever appeals to you, and use that. Before I got, my deck, I had sheafs of paper of tarot cards. Now, I want you to look at the card, okay, and contemplate its images. And we're going to do sort of your own meditation on this. So you want to, when you do this, you want to be in a place where you're not disturbed. It's not going to take very long, but you don't want to be interrupted. So observe the card. Look at all the symbolism. You can look up the symbolism on the internet as well. And in your mind's eye, almost enter the card, become one with it. Look at the scene that's in front of you and think about these questions. So what are you thinking and feeling right now? What is the story that underlines the scene on the card? And how does this story relate to your own life? So take your time, playing this out, daydream if you want about it, create your own little story. I would jot down impressions if you have a journal or paper down, jot those down and look at them for the next 2 weeks until we go to the new moon in Libra. Recording our observations is always a very good way to grow. You're like, oh yeah, I was thinking of that. So you have a little record of what to do. And you could really do this with any of the tarot cards if you're facing a dilemma or whatever. Look up ones that would be appropriate to your situation and kind of meditate on it. I do astro tarot readings, so, you can get in touch with me if you have something that you would like to talk about. We can always do that. So on that note, this ends our episode. Our next episode will be the new moon in Libra and the autumn equinox. I'm very excited about this one. Thank you for listening. And remember, with astrology, you can chart your life's course.
The Essential Zodiac podcast is produced every other Friday. Join us for insights into the moon cycle and astrological events and learn how you can use their influence to benefit your own life. We hope you'll subscribe to the podcast and share it with your friends. You can find Essential Zodiac on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. The Essential Zodiac podcast is produced at Muddy Creek Studios.